Hi, I'm Rich Melvin, and I want to welcome you to Old Gauge Railroading Magazine's video guide to the MTH Digital Command System. This system, which MTH has named DCS, is a full-featured digital command system that can bring a lot more fun to the operation of your O-gauge trains. DCS is capable of doing some very neat things, but before we get into the details, I want to show you the three main components that make up the DCS system. They are the remote control, the TIU or track interface unit, and the AIU or the accessory interface unit. The first thing I'd like to do is to take a quick look at this remote, because I think that might be the best way for us to get started. If you already have DCS, go get your remote, power it up, and follow along with me as we check out the various buttons and menus. And if you don't have a DCS system yet, well, just keep watching. By the end of this video, I'll bet you'll be ready to go out and get one. Now, I'm going to run through this first look at the remote pretty fast, just to show you all the buttons and briefly describe what they do, so don't worry if it doesn't all sink in right now. Later in the video, we'll come back to the remote and I'll take you through everything step by step. At the top of the remote is a small LCD screen that displays information about what's going on with the system at any given moment. We'll be spending a lot of time looking at this display. Below the LCD window are a series of 5 buttons. These are called soft keys. This is a computer term that simply means that these keys do different things depending on what's showing above them in the LCD. The button on the right is also the on-off button, which is used for turning the remote control on or off. You press it briefly to turn it on, press and hold it to turn it off. This little button, just below the on-off button, is the microphone button. There's actually a microphone built into this remote, and when you press this button, you can make your own voice come out of the sound system on a Proto Sound 2 locomotive. MTH calls this feature Proto Dispatch. These gray buttons are used to operate some of the more advanced functions of the system. This button, marked TR, is used when operating in conventional mode and is used to address a specific track. The SW button is the switch button. If you use the accessory interface unit, or AIU, you can program your track switches into the remote and operate all of them from right here. You no longer need to build a big control panel, bristling with switch levers, toggle switches, and buttons. Just below these buttons are a couple you might recognize. This yellow button rings the bell, and the WH button blows the horn or whistle. The ENG button in the middle is for selecting engines. We'll take a closer look at how that button works a little bit later. This thumb wheel is the throttle. It's also used as a selection button when you're working in the various menus. This gray button is the button you use to access the 4 main menus: Sound, System, Control, and Advanced. Within each of those menus are a lot of features that let you set up DCS the way you want it. This red button is the Direction button. Directional control is a little different in command mode because there is no neutral. These 2 buttons allow you to temporarily change how your engine sounds and how much smoke it makes and how fast it goes. And this button operates the coil couplers on the front or rear of a locomotive. Finally, these number buttons allow you to enter numbers and also quickly access other features of DCS, such as turning the smoke on and off with the push of a button. You can turn the headlight on and off with this button, or change the overall volume of the sound system with these 2 buttons. The remote talks to this device, the TIU or track interface unit. Communication between the two is wireless in the 900 MHz band, which is a band that is usually interference-free. However, if you're using DCS on a modular layout in a large arena, for example, interference may be a problem due to other communications devices which also operate in the 900 MHz band. If that happens, MTH has provided a way for you to still be able to use the DCS remote by plugging a standard 4-wire phone cable here and into the mating plug on the TIU. Okay, that's a quick look at the remote. Now let's take a look at the TIU. Let's start here on the input side of the TIU. There are 4 sets of power input connectors here, one for each of the 4 channels in each TIU. As we move around the corner, you can see this plug, marked Proto Dispatch. Remember when I told you the remote had a mic button built into it? You can use that mic, or if you want somewhat better quality of sound, you can use a mic plugged in here to use Proto Dispatch. This is where the AIU, the Accessory Interface Unit, plugs in. It uses a standard 6-wire telephone cable. Using an AIU can allow you to control everything on your layout: lights, accessories, switches, even the coffee pot if you want to. This plug, marked Protocast, is a very unique feature of DCS. If you plug a cassette or CD player into this jack, you can actually play music or sound effects through the sound system on a Proto Sound 2 locomotive. You could run your train around the Christmas tree playing Christmas carols out of the sound system, or highball down the main line playing Chattanooga Choo Choo. Over on this side are the 4 power output connectors. Each one is labeled to match the corresponding input connector on the other side. Down on this end of the TIU, there are a couple more plugs you may want to use. This is the auxiliary power jack. There are 2 ways to power the TIU itself, and I'll show you both methods when we hook up the TIU on the layout. This 9-pin plug is called a serial plug, and it's used for 2 things. You can connect the Lionel Trainmaster command system here, but you can also connect a computer here to do upgrades to the software contained within the TIU and the remote. If you're operating the DCS system at a big train show and you find that you had interference from other communications devices that may be in use, this is where you can hardwire the remote to the TIU with this plug. This will let you operate the DCS systems in areas of high levels of radio frequency interference. This plug is also used to update the software inside the remote. That's a very quick rundown of all the buttons, plugs, and connectors on the remote and the TIU. Now, don't get too overwhelmed with all of this information just yet, because I'm going to spend a lot of time later in the video teaching you the details of the remote and the TIU. The next step is to actually connect the TIU to a layout and make it work. I've got a simple loop set up over in the shop to show you how to do that, so let's head on over there for a few minutes. Here's my simple loop setup. But before we hook up the DCS system, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between operating in the conventional mode and how it's different from the command mode. I've got this old Lionel transformer connected to this loop of track with 2 power wires, which is about as simple as it gets. When I move the lever on the transformer, it puts voltage on the track, and the train moves. You might say that I give instructions to the train to tell it what to do by communicating with the track. If I want the train to go faster, I tell it to do that by sending more voltage to the track from the transformer. If I want to stop the train, I just turn down the transformer and the train stops because there's no more voltage on the track. This is what is called the conventional mode, and it's worked fine for 100 years, but as soon as you want to run more than one train on the same track, conventional mode becomes a bit difficult to use. Here's the problem. Now I've got 2 locomotives on the same track. If I turn on the power, what happens? They both try to run because they're both getting the same instructions from the track. However, they may not run at the same speed, and there are situations like this where the locomotives may not even be set to run in the same direction. In conventional mode, you have no way of separately controlling each locomotive because they're both getting the same instructions from the track, whether you want them to or not. If I interrupt the power to change the direction of the locomotives, both units get the same instructions to cycle their reverse units to the next step. However, since this locomotive is not in sync with the other one, they still don't run together. In conventional mode, there is no way to separately control more than one train on the same track. To gain some measure of control in conventional mode, most people have built big, elaborate control panels, bristling with wires, buttons, and toggle switches. That way, they can separate their track into sections called blocks and allow them to have control over multiple trains even though they're operating in conventional mode. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to separately control each locomotive, no matter where it was on your layout, without all that complicated wiring and a construction of a big control panel? Well, there is a way to do that, and that's exactly what command control is all about. Let's hook up the TIU to the track and get into the command mode so I can show you. I'm going to remove the wires from the transformer and connect them to output channel 1 on the TIU like this. The red terminal should be connected to the center rail, and the black terminal is connected to the outside rail. I've got another set of wires that I'll connect between the transformer and the input channel 1 on the TIU. When you connect the wires to the transformer, be sure to connect them the right way. Now, on this old KW, the U terminal is the common and the A terminal is the hot. And so the U terminal is connected to the black input on the fixed in 1 connector. The A terminal is connected to the red. However, not all Lionel transformers are wired this way. The popular old 1033, for example, is exactly backwards from this. To find out how to wire your transformer, check Appendix D in the MTH DCS instruction book. You must be very sure that you connect your transformer to the TIU correctly. If you were to use both sides of a dual throttle transformer and you happen to get one side connected correctly and the other side connected backwards, you end up with a direct short through the TIU. However, in these older transformers, the breaker may not trip fast enough to avoid damaging the TIU. So be sure you connect the transformer correctly. The list of compatible transformers is in Appendix D in the DCS instruction book. One easy way to prevent damaging the TIU is to put inline fuses between the transformer and the TIU. These fuses will blow almost instantly when there's a short, much faster than the circuit breaker in these old transformers. These fuse holders and wires are available at Radio Shack. The item number is 270-1217. These fuses are very cheap insurance against damaging your TIU should you accidentally connect it wrong. I now have all the wires connected to the transformer, the TIU, and the track. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that all I have done is change the wires so that the track power is now going through the TIU on its way to the track. Now, when I turn on the power, the TIU adds the DCS digital command signal to the power. Now, here's an important point that you should know about DCS. You can use any UL-approved transformer with the DCS system. As you can see, I'm using an old Lionel KW here, and if you already have an old transformer that you've been using to run your trains, you can probably use it with DCS. You do not have to use an MTH transformer with DCS. In the DCS instruction book, in Appendix D, is that list of compatible transformers I mentioned. It's a long list because there are only a couple of transformers that are not well suited for use with DCS. You may have a small MTH Z500 or Z750 transformer that came with a train set. If so, MTH makes this adapter cable, so you can even use these transformers to power the DCS system on your railroad. This is MTH part number 50-1017, and it's available from your MTH dealer.